Alright, welcome back. Now we're going to be talking about Zerg. Zerg, probably the most, I guess, confusing of the races for someone who's played normal RTS before, but hasn't really played Starcraft. There are a few mechanics we got to talk about before we even get into it. We'll see it in the game in just a moment, but I want to talk about Larva, Creep, and Overlords. In just the way production mechanics for Zerg work. They're different than Terran and different than Protoss. So Zerg, you start with a hatchery with several larvae at it. Those larvae are able to spawn units based on what tech buildings you've created. You don't have to queue up buildings to produce units. You need to have larvae from hatcheries. So to do that, you need to get hatcheries usually quicker than other players would get their bases, because they're not only your mining centers, but your production facilities. We'll get into a game, we'll look at it. But that is one of the biggest differences between pretty much almost any other anything in RTS. I like it a lot. It's very unique. But it can be a little bit confusing starting out. On top of that, you have Overlords. Zerg supply structures. Zerg supply comes from Overlords. And, I mean, you probably know that. But Overlords are not only a supply structure used for, like, a wall or defense, but they're also used for scouting information. That's how Zerg gets their scouting information of their opponents early on, is by moving their Overlords in a deliberate manner to find out the information they need to know. On top of that, there is Creep. Creep, by itself, allows you to build Zerg buildings, and Zerg units, most of them, move quicker on Creep. So the Creep, of course, is the slime surrounding the bases. You can spread the Creep with Creep Tumors and Overlords. Creep Tumors give you additional vision as well, but the real benefit of the Creep is the movement speed and the vision in general. So I'm going to be moving up. I'm going to go for a spawning pool first. I'm not going to go for a hatchery first. That's impressive. I don't even... I mean, I can use my imagination, but any definition you might want to use is still impressive. So, moving on. But, so what I'm doing, I hotkey my hatchery. I'm building from the eggs. From the larva, rather. I'm sending out my first Overlord towards the front to be able to get vision. He's Protoss, so he doesn't really have any anti-air units super early on, but eventually he can get Stalkers. So I still want to put them in safe locations. But I'm going to get the spawning pool at around 16, 17 supply. Then I'm going to take a drone down and make another hatchery at the second base. Alright. And then, now, the thing about larva, if you don't have a queen to inject larva, and we'll talk about that in a second, then larva spawns, you can only have 3 larva per hatchery. So every second you're not using a larva to build an egg, larva is not respawning. So you want to use larva as quickly as possible. You don't want to be hanging out with it for too long early on. Otherwise, you're just slowing everything down. If you just forget to make drones, you've just not only slowed down those 2 drones you wanted to make, but the 2 drones after that, because the larva hasn't started respawning yet. But as soon as that spawning pool finishes, I'm making a queen. I went into gas after the hatchery, and I want to work towards the Zergling speed upgrade, because otherwise, Zerglings are pretty useless. Slow Zerglings are good for looking kind of annoying and then a little bit of scouting, but that's about it. But I'm going to inject that hatchery right off the bat. I like hotkeying my queens a little bit separately. And I do use camera locations, which are... I'm going to explain camera locations again. But I have my camera locations. You can look at the camera locations guide. I have them set to Control F2 through F5. So Control F2... Control F3 on these bases, and then I can use F2 and F3 to flip between them. You can rebind them in your hotkeys as well, but that's how I use to move between my Zerg bases, and Zerg especially, it's very important. Looks like this guy's got a lot of adepts on the way. He has no expansion. We're going to be making Zerglings, and I'm actually going to continue, when in doubt, as a Zerg player, build more queens. Just build more queens. Now remember, that adept vision range is quite short, but we're just going to build queens for defense here. He'll probably try to shade into the main base. Yes, he does. We've already got the Zerglings. They don't have that much vision on these adepts, so... Oh, looks like he's sitting back. But I've got Zergling speed on the way, and I'm going to start those creep tumors out of these queens. And since I've driven him back for a little while, yeah, he's got an expansion on the way. I'm going to bring all the Zerglings over there, because now I'm going to have a lot of Zerglings with Zergling speed. So those are going to be very scary. I just now finished some more Overlords. I was pretty sloppy. I have a lot of money in the bank. I don't need that. I'm just going to get an Evolution Chamber to start upgrades. If you find yourself banking up a bit of money, but you don't know where to spend it, it shouldn't be on a bunch of... a bunch of units just because you have the money. If you can build the drones by all means. But it shouldn't be on just a bunch of units because you want to build a bunch of units. So he's got overcharge. He's got a robotics facility. So what does this mean? Alright, so he's going to build a pretty strong army. And as Zerg, unlike the other races, you got to be a little bit more reactive. Because that's how Zerg works. Is you have to be a little bit more on top of what your opponents are doing, so that way you can build the counters. Counters are probably most important for Zerg, because in general, as a Zerg player, you're building as many of the right units as possible, because your units, in general, once again, are not that cost-effective. So I'm looking at this, I'm saying he has a couple bases, but he's going to have a lot of things like Immortals. So I'm going to actually build Ravagers and Zerglings. That's my plan. Ravagers and Zerglings. Is he all alone? Looks like that Immortal is not going to live up to his name. But I don't worry about what's happening over there. I'm getting everything I need. Oh, what? You see, micro your macro. That's more important. But I'm injecting my hatcheries. I'm adding on some more gas now that I have 15, 16. Remember, you can go over 16 workers per hatchery. You can go over 16, but once you get around 16 is when you can kind of afford to get some more gas. And Ravagers take a lot of gas as well. I'm getting a lair. The lair, I mean, getting lair by about 5 minutes. Usually you want lair started between 30 and 40 drones. That's not a hard and fast rule, but you want usually at least 30 drones before you go for a lair. Otherwise, you don't really have the economy to go for lair tech. I would say closer to 40. By the way, you can hover over the supply count to see your army supply and your worker supply, so you can get an exact. You don't have to guess. You can get an exact number of drones you have. And remember, as a Zerg, when you build new buildings, like say these safety spore crawlers I'm building in case he goes for some sort of Dark Templar, you lose drones. So you got to be very careful. But I still have Overlords. Notice where the Overlords are set up. He killed that first one, but I still have Overlords and Creep kind of lined up around the edges. So you might lose a few games because you don't really know how the map works or what kind of order units move in, stuff like that. But eventually, once you get the hang of the maps, and you can kind of just copy me or any players you watch or any players you play against and get an idea of where a good spot for those Overlords are. You can find these little high ground locations that they can't hit them, stuff like that. That OB placement. You're no silver. Now, he was diamond. But remember, he did have his wanker stuck in his keyboard. I'll admit it, guys. I got gold last week. So hopefully you guys think I'm qualified to make these guides. Now, you see here, if you just put your Overlords in the right spot, that, in many people's minds, is enough to get you out of the Silver League. All you need to do is put a few units in the right spot at the right time, and suddenly you should be better than Silver. That's all it takes. It might not seem like a big deal, but it is.
Additional Vespine gas required.
He can't see that now because it's on that high ground. But we're continuing to build the Roach Ravager. He's got an observer in the main. I'm running away because those Adepts don't have very much vision, do they? But now I've won a fight. I'm going to hotkey all my roaches and ravagers. I'm going to counterattack.
Sequences spun.
So from this point, you don't want to put all your egg, like if he has a bunch of disruptors or something like that, then suddenly I'm in a bad spot. But I want to have another level of tech. I want to make sure he doesn't take another base. I want to take another base myself, and I want to move up this tech tree. I want to climb it. So infestation pit. We have 48 drones. Let's go up to 60, 65. As a Zerg player, you almost literally cannot have too many drones. Speaking of which, but I should still be in a good position in this fight. We want to get to the point where it doesn't matter what I make. As Zerg, it does matter more than the other races a lot of the time what you do make. I'm not even going to micro. No micro, no hands. He'll get another nice disruptor hit here in a moment. It's about to recharge, but we're going to back up. I lied. A little micro. Like, you shouldn't just run into disruptor hits, okay? But I can get, well, whatever here, to be honest. Bunch of Zerglings. Mutas would be the best way to end the game. So this is the first time I'm using my corrosive biles, but I kill that. So that's nice. Nobody saw that. Professional gamer. He killed his own adept, so that's always a plus. But mutas are the best way because he just is not building. The units that kill Ravagers and the units that kill Roaches are not the same set of units that really kill Mutalisks that well. That's just how it is. So I'm just using camera locations to flip around my bases. I've got this on my 4th camera location. Bam, like that. Well, you shouldn't do it that fast, but like... And I'm kind of just holding him to the amount of bases he has. I'm starting to bank up money. I'm getting more tech. I've got 54 drones. I think we can do better than that. We'll get a spine crawler in the main, in the net, in the 3rd, and we'll go 4 for 4. Make sure I have the defenses. Make sure I have the economy. We want to get to the point where you're too big to fail. And then I'm just going to take some of these Zerglings. I'm going to run into the main base as well. And then we're going to take all these Hydralisks. We're going to move over here. But the Zerglings are in the main. Now, Adrenal Glands is actually an insane upgrade for Zerglings, by the way. 20%. Actually, it's... What is it in Legacy of the Void? It's something ridiculous. It's 40% attack speed. That's actually insane, by the way. It's the highest single damage upgrade for Zerglings. On top of +1, +2, or +3. I added on a macro. Here's a good rule. If you're over 60 drones especially, but if you have no larva and you have over 1,000 minerals, add a macro hatch. A macro hatch is just a hatch you put in a safe location, like your main or your second base, so you can have more larvae. You can inject it, you can get more larvae. And be like, well, I'm wasting my money. You know what's also wasting your money? Not spending it, alright? There's no interest in this game. The only sort of interest you're going to gain by not spending your money is your opponent and taking your ladder points. That's it. Otherwise, it is a waste to save money. Unless you're saving up for like a bunch of mutas or a bunch of ultras or some sort of tech coming in. Otherwise, it's just burning a hole in your pocket. But I've got my... Okay, here's how you hotkey from eggs, by the way. This is an important skill. So I'm selecting all my hatches. I'm now selecting my eggs. I'm going to build 3 mutas. My muta hotkey is 3. Control-click the eggs. Shift 3, and that adds them to the control group. And when they pop, there they will be. And we're going to go into the main here. Try to take out this base as well. I've got my ground army on 1. And we should be coming back to defend. I can kill the forge. I can just kill the pylons, actually, and I will. We'll go down here. He's probably bringing back most of his army. And now we're going to use the hold position hotkey. Watch this. And that will hold everything in the mineral line to attack what's there. Now I can just attack all this, but... Kill the cyber core. But now we've split him in 2 different locations. He doesn't really have the forces. Like I said, you don't just say, I killed a bunch of his units. Now let's counterattack and only focus on having Roach Ravager. No. You gotta have other options. But that is the plan. I've had enough. Honestly, you know what? It's probably time to leave. But what this came down to is, as Zerg, you have a lot of options early. You have you can go for a 12 pool. You can go for any other sort of aggression. But the strength of Zerg is, if you can master it, the basics of Zerg, anybody can 12 pool or 14 pool or drone rush their way up to Diamond League. But if you get in the mindset of always having another option, as soon as a door closes, you want to have 2 more doors open to you. A lot of Zerg players at the lower levels, the biggest mistake is tunnel vision. And it's worse than the other races, because Zerg units, the vast majority of the time, especially early in the game, are not as cost effective. ZVZ obviously is an exception because it's ZVZ, Zerg versus Zerg. But, because Zerg units are usually less cost effective, you need to have another option to make your units more cost effective, which means choosing another tech choice. That doesn't always mean choosing the right one, it just means choosing something different. Like if you've gone for a lot of roaches, you can switch into mutas. If you've gone for a lot of Zerglings, you can switch into like Hydralisk. And you can kind of take advantage of the situation. But you want to open another door. And on top of that, no 2 gases super early. I see this so much, especially from Zerg players. Do not take 2 gases before taking a second base. But I want to do a Ravager all-in. Do a Ravager all-in with 2 bases. I don't want to see it anymore. Alright, no more of that. You want at least 30, 35 drones before even mining really off of 2 gases. Or getting your lair. Otherwise, you're never going to have drones because you're always spending, like, you're building Evo chambers and static defense and hatcheries, and then suddenly your drone count, which was at 33, is now down at 27. But now you have lair tech, so you got to build a Hydralisk den. But I don't know, maybe I should build a Spark. No! Build more drones, alright? Thanks, Obama. I did it. 1 gas right after the 16 pool. 1 gas is fine. But Zerg in general does not need as much gas. Just in general. So, especially early on. Yes, there are some all-ins or pressures or whatever, but that's just not creating a good habit. If you're, if you get in the habit of, well, I don't need to run a marathon, so I'm only going to run 200 feet per day. Well, you're never going to get very far. You're going to run those 200 feet pretty well. But if you don't look further than that, or for in non-freedom units, fucking 70 meters. But if you don't look further than that, you're never going to get further. You're just going to be the guy who runs 200 feet a day. So Zerg is probably the most important race to have a focus on doing more than what you're doing right now. Just because of the nature of it. And if you get good at that, everyone will think you're fucking imbalanced. Alright, we're starting out sending that first Overlord. I'm already hotkeying it towards the front. This is Zerg versus Zerg, which means he doesn't have any anti-air options early on. The second Overlord, I'm going to send towards like a 3rd base location or something like that. I'm still going to go with a spawning pool first. Just safety pool. Yeah, you might be able to get away with a hedge first. You could go for like a pool of pressure. But the focus is on being a step ahead and always having open doors. Alright. So, I'm just going to be going... I want to stress this. Now, all my guides at this level... Remember, if you're watching this guide, this is targeted towards players who... You understand what all the units are. You understand most of what the races do, or what you think they can do. But you really have no... Once you get into a game, you look in front of you, and you have no idea where you're going. You have no plan. You have no direction. The idea here is to give you a compass. It's not to steer the car, okay? I know, nobody has... We got mixed analogies, but whatever. But the idea is to give you direction and say head that way. But you got to get there yourself. So I've got a queen on the way. After the expansion, I got the spawning pool before it, though. About 17 spawning pool, 17 hatch, 17 gas, and then we just kind of work our way forward. And these overlords are just going across. Once again, he doesn't have anything that can kill them early, so I can just put it kind of close to the front so I can see any Zerglings coming off. We'll get this queen, and this queen's going to go down to the second base because this one's not finished yet, and I can build another one. Wow. The second base is finishing. Alright, we see he has an expansion. He's building a queen. The way you can tell if a Zerg building is upgrading is if it's having a seizure. So you see there, that spawning pool is upgrading Zergling speed. It looks like he's going to continue making Zerglings. So I'm going to get my Baneling nest. I'm going to get a few Zerglings of my own. I'll get a few drones as well. But we've already seen he has a tendency to make Zerglings. So I want to make a couple more drones and then just defend. And if I can kill an Overlord, that really takes a lot of wind out of his sails. And I'm sure I can make a pun out of this one besides the Overlord thing, but whatever. We are on Odyssey. Alright, so I'm going to get some creep in between the bases. The idea here is, in Zerg versus Zerg, just getting Lings and Banes early on is kind of a given. But, I want to have more drones as well. So, looks like he's about to move out. As soon as that Baneling nest finishes, we get as many Banes as possible. Let's not skimp on those. He looks very committed to this Zergling idea. So with Zerglings and Banelings, it's very important not to just A-move your Banelings. There's something with Banelings. Now we're gonna... This is one of the few times you want to micro your micro. But the X key is manual detonate. Like so. So that way you can maximize your hits instead of the Baneling connecting. You can also just right-click and let them kill it, but some players will run away, so you can use the manual detonation to maximize damage. And now, of course, he's opened up an opportunity for counterattack, but instead of relying entirely on killing him with a counterattack here, I'm just going to transition. And what is a transition in this scenario? It's add an evolution chamber, add more drones, get another Overlord. Because he's still going down this road. I'm actually going to right-click, shift-click off 2 Banelings, and then re-hotkey my army. So I still have a couple at home. But we're going to get a Roach more in. We're going to get those evolution chambers. And once again, because if he made all those Zerglings, and he made more Zerglings than me, right? Which means all of his money and all of his larvae went into making these Zerglings. So if I just simply transition into something that kills Zerglings, we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to manually well, looks like he'll just throw himself upon my beautiful sword. As you can see there. And just a little bit of control goes a long way. So I've been making drones. And just little tiny trick. Nothing crazy. Just making sure that Baneling doesn't A-move, but instead I'm right-clicking. This is one of the very few situations where instead of using A-move all the time, attack move, you want to use a right-click. You want to use a move command. Oh. How spicy. He stopped me this time. So you can use little fancy tactics like this as well. Put the Baneling on the high ground here. And you see he's still obviously making Zerglings based on all the Zerglings he keeps making. But I'm going for Roaches with +1 attack and Roach speed. Now, the big deal of +1 attack is that Roaches, usually when they come out, they take 3 hits to kill Zerglings. Which isn't terrible, but... when they have +1 attack, they take 2 hits to kill Zerglings. Instead, which is a 50% increase. So it's much, much quicker in killing a pack of Lings. I mean, not as quick as a Baneling, but it's pretty close. So, and it's obviously just Roaches in general don't take much damage from Lings and Banes. Especially if they don't have upgrades. So I'm adding on a third base. I'm just walking a casual Bane across. We might be able to get another money shot. Who knows?
Mineral field depleted.
But right as +1, I'm gonna, because I haven't seen what he's doing for a little while, I'm gonna make an Overseer and queue it into the base. I'm not gonna just stare at it though. I'll go back, inject. Set hotkeys, make roaches. C +1 is done.
Mutation complete.
And we're looking to see if he has something like a Spire. A Spire, obviously, like roaches cannot hit up. So if you have a Spire, then, well, hello there. So what I need to do right now is attack. You might be like, well, you can't attack because your units can't hit up. I need to attack right now because I can't give him time while I build my Hydralisk Den, because I should have more workers, right? Even if I make a few Spore Crawlers, which I do need to build. But it takes a while for those mutas to kill roaches. It is not a quick process. So I just need to... The best defense against mutas is a good offense. So just attack forward. Wait for the Hydralisk done. I still have good upgrades on the deck as well. He's going to take a long while to kill these roaches, and I'm going to kill the drones. I'm going to split some roaches off to do more damage to both the mineral lines. So even though he's eventually going to kill these, well, his mutas are, let's just say, distracted at the moment. And his drones are not so great either. So by the time his mutas come across the map, I'm afraid my Hydralisk will be fully operational. So it looks like most of the drones were taken out.
Additional, not enough energy.
I could even target now. I mean, so now he's killed all these, but I'm going to have Hydralisk speed range, the muscular augments, which is a critical upgrade. And I'm going to have enough Hydras to take them out. Hydras can trade pretty much one-on-one for mutas, especially in low numbers. Once they get to higher numbers, they start ripping through things with their splash damage, with the glaives that kind of work through. But in low numbers, Hydras definitely have the upper hand, and Hydras are half as much gas, so you can build potentially twice as many. And in this situation, this happens. Mutas, where are you? Hello. I mean, I have a single spore. Killing overlords isn't going to be the game-changing difference he may be hoping for at this scenario. This is not one of those scenarios where you got to be like, now what do I do to transition? What I do to transition, I just keep making Hydras pretty much, so. Whereas the other control group goes across the map. Run away! My precious queen.
Mutation complete.
Really done. Dunno. He's got a fair point. But we'll see the APMs at the end of the game. And we'll see who's using it more efficiently. And I stand by that. As little actions for as much return. It's important to make smarter decisions than harder decisions. Oh, I did have more. So my point doesn't really stand up. I wasn't really keeping my APM low there. But that did come down to just... He let about 70 Zerglings die to about 4 Banelings. So you can't do that. That is very simple. You can't do that. And a lot of players... I'll tell you that short anecdote before we get into the third game. But short anecdote. I hated Ling Baneling. When I started out, when I was just playing Zerg as my main race, even getting up towards Masters, I hated Ling Baneling in ZVZ. I thought it was stupid. I thought it was... I didn't really think it was a coin flip, but I just hated it in general. I just didn't like the idea. I didn't like the mechanics. So... But then, at some point, I just bit the bullet. I just bit the bullet and I said, alright, we're playing Ling Baneling. And then 200 or so Zerg versus Zerg games in a row, I played Ling Baneling all-ins. And back in Wings of Liberty and Heart of the Swarm, you could do that pretty much all the time. It was even worse than Legacy. If you don't like Ling Bane, you wouldn't have liked Wings of Liberty or Heart of the Swarm ZVZ very much. Because, like, 90% of games could end on Ling Bane. Sometimes they got to, like, mutas. Every once in a while, some weird guy would just go roaches. But So I did that about 200 games in a row. And now I very much... I mean, if you see my, obviously, higher level games, I really like my Ling Baneling. But sometimes you just gotta go in dry and see what happens. And I lost a lot of games doing that, but I won a lot more in the long run. So if you don't like a certain strategy or not good at it, doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. It just means you gotta work a little bit harder at it. Well, yeah. That is what Zerg comes down to. Zerg has a lot of things like you can't really avoid. It's one of the best. Zerg is a lot more focused on, unlike the other races, it's a lot. You can pick a style, but it's less the decision of what units to make, and more the decision about how you go about making them. By that I mean, are you a player who likes to make a lot of queens early and then transition into, like, roaches? Are you a player who likes to get a lot of bases instead of queens and then get a bunch of zerglings and then go roaches? Stuff like that. And while it might on paper seem like you have less options than a Terran or a Protoss, there are just different options that aren't as easy to recognize. Like, I really like going for heavy creep spread in Zerg versus Terran. I really like focusing on that instead of getting a ton of tech up super early. But, of course, it's up to you. I can recommend certain things, of course. And I will. And that's what I'm doing right now. But even Zerg allows you to kind of show your own style or focus on what you like to do and still win the game, obviously. Alright. So I'm sending the drone down for a hatchery. Once again, he's random now. We have no idea what race he is, but I'm sticking with the same build. Gonna be getting the gas after the hatch, after the pool, making sure I built an overlord before doing anything else at 13 supply. Just because the build order may say hatch first does not mean you don't build any drones and then build a hatchery. I can see how that could be potentially misconstrued. But I see a lot of players, not a lot, but there are the players who are like, hatch first. All right, save up 300 minerals, 12 hatchery. Let's do it. Don't do it. All right. So I've got the queen. We're going to throw down, not slow down. That doesn't make any sense. And inject. Looks like he's a Terran based on the fact he has Terran buildings. The first Overlord's going to move over to this side. I'm actually going to put him right over here. This second Overlord I'm going to adjust. And I'm going to do a gas pull-off here. So the idea is I get Zergling speed, which is the most important upgrade to have early on. And then I pull off of gas with a couple drones. This means I focus more on mineral mining, and mineral mining is insanely important for a Zerg. But how did that happen? Anyways, I'm not complaining. But the Zerglings slip through the almost impenetrable defenses. And right now, what do we see? We see a lot of wrecks. And no expansion. So, let's get back into that gas geyser. Let's make a couple overlords here. Notice that he's making some reapers. Get another creep tumor. And you might be like, oh shit, make a fuck ton of units right now. No. You can calm down. Get up to, I'd say, 30, 35 drones, and then we're going to make Lings and Banelings. Another alternative option would be Roaches and Ravagers. I think for this one, we're going to go Lings and Banelings. It's actually dealer's choice, which is kind of interesting, right? But we're spreading the creep as well. It will allow me to have the vision. But yeah, get the Baneling nest out. Looks like he's real heavy on this. He's still got a couple coming up. It looks like he's very interested in this. He can win this fight. I've got speedlings here. I'm going to try to get the wraparound gank. He has to try to decide how he's going to escape. I'm going to decide how he dies. Bring the drones out to join the party. He killed a couple more there. And this is a situation for spine crawlers. He's very interested in making Reapers. But like I said, when in doubt, more Queens. I'm going to have this Overlord in position, see any Reapers come this way. And I will get the Roach Warren. If he's this committed, let's bring this Overlord in. Let's see if he has an expansion. And he does. He's decided, you know what? Maybe losing all my units wasn't great for my long-term opportunities. Let's expand. So I didn't just make units because, I mean, if he has a bunch of Reapers, am I really going to go up a ramp and try to attack him? If I try, I will fail, and that's the best way to get behind is by attacking into a defending player. Instead, if he defends, expand. I'm taking another base. I'm going to go for the third. I'd usually love to have the third base quicker, but if he makes dozen Reapers, then I don't really have that opportunity. So we'll stick with the guns. We'll get roaches. We'll get +1. We'll get speed. I don't care what matchup it is. And then you can control-click the creep tumors, hold shift, and look real fancy. For a little bit of quicker creep spread, especially if you have more than 3 or 4 tumors. And then I'm getting these extractors up. I'm keeping the queens here. I'm using those camera locations for the injects. I'm still making some more drones, because once again, like, what's he going to do with these Reapers? You don't scare me. I don't fear the Reaper. We'll see if he has anything out here, but how many drones am I at now? Hovering over that top right. Throw some nades out, but get out of here. We don't like your kind around here.
Not enough energy.
But we'll get another evolution chamber. We're going to rally units to this base. I'm going to use these to take down the rocks in between this and the other bases I want to take. But time to make 5, 6 overlords, and I'm rallying them out to the back so they don't die to random things coming across the map. I would rather they didn't. We're at 50 drones. I can do a little bit better than that. Get an infestation pit. Working up towards hive tech is something a lot of Zerg players at the lower levels, I think, are very scared. Like, they don't even understand what hive tech is and why it's so powerful. But it's insanely powerful. So, just for safety, Spore Spine Crawler at each base, as I'm starting to spread myself out a little bit more thinly.
Not enough minerals.
Alright. So, we're at 60 drones. If he doesn't have a third base, 60 drones is quite nice. If he had a third base, I'd want to go a little bit higher than that. But if he's just on 2 bases, I'm still on a much better economy with 60 drones. So I've got the Zerglings in the front. Take a look at what he's up to.
Sufficient energy.
All right, and we're going to get that hive. And now, yeah, I didn't actually answer my own question. You got a good point. Hive Tech gives you access to Vipers, 3/3 upgrades, Ultralisks, and Broodlords. Hive Tech is the only really reliable way to go into the end game, I guess you could say, or the late game as a Zerg. You might be like, well, carriers are super powerful, or these Marines are so strong. Well, if you're just making Zerglings, you don't have the counter to either. But if you're able to get Ultralisks or Broodlords or maybe some Vipers to abduct, then you actually have counters to the end game units. So many Zerg players don't even get past a lair, if they even get there in the first place. So, while I don't need the Hive Tech now, he's not on an even economy. He doesn't have this Death Ball. Well, he's building it, but he's on 2 bases, so it's not that big a deal. But yeah, he's just building a bunch of bio units. But if he wasn't doing that, and he was building, like, I don't know, a bunch of Liberators and tanks or something like that, scary stuff that I can't really deal with, then I need Broodlords, and I need Vipers for Blinding Cloud, and I need these units. Otherwise, I just get run over because Zerg units don't really get cost effective until you have the hive tech. Not really.
Mineral cluster expended.
We're spreading the creep out on every side.
Command unacceptable.
I'm going to get the burrow. I'm actually going to add some drones on. What is this? You got some random reapers there. We're going to get some ravagers in the mix because the fungal and ravager combination is actually insane if you land it. It's not too hard to land, but it takes some practice. I'm just adding drones onto this base, keeping a lookout on the creep, trying to do as much injecting as I can get a hold of here. Keeping the upgrades pumping, whatever they are. I'm going for some melee upgrades now because I'm getting that Ultralist Cavern. How long I got Burrow, so maybe we can get some dirty fungals out there. But I mean, the obligation is on him right now. Like, he has to attack me. I'm the one on 4. Oh, he has a Raven. You crazy devil.
Under attack.
But I'm starting to get... We should throw the corrosive biles up. But let's see what we can do here. And as you can see, the corrosive biles and the fungal growth make a disgusting combination in many more ways than one. And then if you win a fight, can get a Spire, because if he eventually makes Liberators or makes like some random Banshees or something like that, you got the Spire going on. But yeah, just right place, right time. A couple Infestors are better than having 20 more Roaches. It's very simple. When it is... when is it a good idea to get Overlord Speed? I didn't actually talk about that. Overlord Speed is a very important upgrade. I didn't actually get it in a timely manner in these games. I really should have. But it's very important to have Overlord Speed. I would say start it by the time you have 60 drones. Like, or 50 drones. Let's say 50 drones. If you get to 50 drones, you should start Overlord Speed if you don't have it yet. If you're really scared about what they're doing, you can get it earlier. It's not expensive. It doesn't take very long. It takes 60 seconds. Or is it 60 seconds in Legacy? We'll just say it is short. It doesn't matter the exact number. I don't know the exact numbers. All right? And I've played 35,000 goddamn games. But I would say by the time you have about 50 drones, you should start it up. Another one is Burrow. Like, Burrow's really good. The problem with Burrow is that it is really good, but a lot of players, as soon as they get Burrow, are like, I gotta do Burrow Micro. I got this fancy new tool here that I gotta use, and then they ignore everything else they need to be doing with their life. But Overlord Speed is definitely one of those, like, you just pick it up. It's kind of like getting Creep Spread. You should just have it eventually. So, but yeah, as Zerg, it's about keeping those doors open, but really not getting the double gas early. Expanding as quickly as possible. The general rule is having a second base started by 2 minutes and a third base by, at the latest, 5 minutes, unless they're doing some sort of big, huge attack, just trying to kill you. But it's better to get that third base started by 4 minutes. And then from there, a lair once you have at least 30 drones. Upgrades starting by 5 minutes. Or the Evo chamber started by 5 minutes at the latest. And then just kind of trying to keep an eye on, do I need to have a switch here? Like, does he have a ton of Immortals? Well, then maybe I need to go Mutas. So, that's just how Zerg works. Hopefully, this helped. Hopefully, you learned a little bit in playing the most unique race in StarCraft 2 and compared to other RTSs. I hope you learned at least something. So, thank you for watching.